Live. Let's begin our conversation about teaching persona in digital spaces. This is a Google Hangout. I've invited some friends and from near and far to talk to my students tonight about how they manage and build their digital persona as a teacher. I know that there are many challenges, so I'd like to have them each introduce themselves, maybe let us know which part of the province you're hanging your hat in these days, and a role that you're working with students with right now.
Bonjour tout le monde, bonsoir. My name is Alison Fleece. I'm actually with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. I currently teach grades 7 and 8 French immersion. My role right now is a lead with student voice within our school district in many capacities, as well as an advocate for equity and equality, not just academics, but in all things of student strength. And I'm really excited to be part of the chat tonight to support the growth of not just you, but myself as well.
Sorry, Angela, can you go next?
Hello, my name is Angela De Palma. I'm an itinerant special education resource teacher with the Halton Catholic District School Board.
Sorry, Angela, can you go next?
Can you hear me now? Hello, my name is Angela De Palma. I'm an itinerant special education resource teacher with the Halton Catholic District School Board.
Sorry, Angela, can you go next?
My name is... Hello, my name is Angela De Palma. My name is Angela De Palma, and I'm an itinerant special education resource teacher with the Halton Catholic District School Board. And I'm currently on secondment to the Ontario College of Teachers. I'm chair of council, which means I act as one of the official spokespersons of the college. And I visit all the faculties of education in the province. I'm very fortunate to do so. And one of the items of discussion that I include in my presentation rests around our digital presence, and about, as a professional, the expectations tied to us as professionals regarding social media. And so I was very pleased to receive the invitation tonight to share the college's perspective, and I'm situated in Southern Ontario and Toronto right now. And so
Hi everyone, my name is Heather Theismeyer. I am a high school math and physics teacher with the Rainbow District School Board, and I'm based at the high school on Manitoulin Island. For the past couple years, I've been flipping my classes over to a bring your own device, independent learning, student-centered style of class. So I've been doing a lot of connections through social media over the past couple years, and particularly recently, I've been hoping to connect my classes with other classes around the world. So that's been my focus lately, and I'm looking forward to helping out tonight.
Hi, my name is Lee Castle, and I am a full-time technology coach with the Avon-Maitland District School Board in southwestern Ontario. My portfolio includes globally connected learning, blogging as pedagogy, new literacies, and one-to-one learning environments. I'm also founder of the Digital Human Library. And the Digital Human Library is a free educational resource that connects Canadian teachers and students with experts around the world who are offering educational programs using video conferencing technology. I'm thrilled to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Am I next, Helen? Awesome. I'm Marcy Duncan, and I work for the Simcoe County District School Board as a technology instructional resource teacher. I work with integrating technology in schools and with kids and students, and it's a really great role. For example, today I was working with a group of 20 teachers, and we talked about how we could leverage digital technologies in their classrooms to get at deep learning.
Hi, my name's Peter Cameron. I'm a teacher at St. Elizabeth School in Thunder Bay with Thunder Bay Catholic District School Board, and I've been teaching for 20 years. Pretty much the duration of my career has been at St. Elizabeth School. It's just a fantastic place to be. A lot of very forward-moving people there, including my wife, who's an ELKP teacher as well there. So happy to be here and happy to see a lot of familiar names and now faces as well.
Hi, my name's Tina Zita. I'm an instructional technology resource teacher with the Peel District School Board. So like many others, I support teachers at 50 schools using technology in the program.
Thank you, each of you. Such a diverse set of skills and backgrounds for each of you. So the first question, how have you worked to build your teaching identity in digital spaces? And maybe by answering where you are present in social media. So where do you go to first? What's the mechanism or means of building your identity in digital spaces? To jump in and let's have a conversation.
I'm used to raising my hand, so I'll jump in before the hand goes. I just want to say that to anyone that's watching, I'm one of the probably maybe newer ones to social media. I actually didn't jump on it until spring of 2014. From there, I launched with a colleague into the ConnectED Twitter handle, and provincial/global chat that we have occurring. Just to be very blunt and clear, I never went on with the intention of gaining followers, and I've tweeted as such. I went on to social media as a means of personalized professional development, and it's the only type of way that I will use social media is in professional capacities. And this is thanks to the SRO that we have, so our school resource officer, that when we engage in social media as educators, it is about the professional growth that we can have and learn from others, and it is not about the numbers that stack behind us that create the quality of educator that we can be. And that's probably some of the best advice I was ever given from a police officer who's part of our community and a very strong presence in our school to support social media effective use. And I think that thanks to the role that social media has played, like many mirrored conversations we've just had or introductions, it has opened the classroom globally. It has opened my mind globally despite having taught overseas. And it has made me really think about the dynamics of our classroom and turn it into a true learning space thanks to the social media abilities, or not abilities, the technological supports that we now have, if that makes any sense. Again, French all day, English at night.
I'll just jump in just to piggyback off of what Alison said. I think I'm actually fairly new to social media as well. I swore that I would never use social media. In fact, I said to a friend of mine, I would say no less than 4 years ago, that if I ever go onto Twitter, just let me know and get me off quickly. However, I think the reason why I got onto social media was just to connect with a number of different people outside of my board when I became an Apple Distinguished Educator. Is just a way of me continuing the connection that I had established with them in Austin in 2013. And then I slowly saw the power of Twitter, particularly for me, and just the ability to learn from one another and to kind of expand the walls of our classrooms. In fact, literally bring them down. And so I'm kind of passionate about, yes, I agree with Alison as well, as the whole following thing I kind of have an issue with as well. And I think I'd rather call it a connection. In fact, I'm almost starting to look at really kind of paring down the number of followers and whatnot, because the kids, my students, will say, oh, but that teacher only has 100 followers, and I think we have to be very careful of the message that we're sending to our kids. So I'd prefer it to be called connections that we have, and I would say that there's probably 100 very strong connections that I have on Twitter that, where we're just sharing what we're doing within the classroom and challenging one another with some math activities and so on. So now it's I'm to the point where I'm trying to model the positive use of social media in my classroom and really making some very good decisions before tweeting out or before, you know, having our voice kind of go public. So I've had some conversations in the last 3 or 4 or 5 months with parents, and they're really quite happy as to, you know, we don't say go ahead and use Facebook or go ahead and use social media, but just a model of, just an example of how to model it within a classroom and make good decisions.
I'm happy to jump in. I started using social media to share, actually, just to share. I had started working on the Digital Human Library, and I had no way to share my connections with other educators, so I needed a public platform in order to do that. But what I quickly found when I started blogging was that I was really writing to myself for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, because I didn't have an audience. So that really made me think about the purpose for entering a social media space. And then I also had to think about how I was going to build an audience. And I'm now coming back to that idea of connecting and how we connect, and not only understanding ourselves how we network, but also how we teach our students that network literacy piece, and to build those connections in a meaningful way that serve a meaningful purpose.
I'll join the conversation. I'm also quite new to Twitter. I joined, maybe I beat Alison a little bit from when she joined. I was encouraged by a colleague who was very active in Twitter and talked to me about how there was really this great learning community on Twitter, and how it was a matter of posting a question or tweeting out a question about how to use a certain technological tool, and you'd very quickly have several responses to that question. So I was skeptical and questioned how much time I'd have to even spend on Twitter. And then once I became involved with the College of Teachers and started joining these faculty presentations to teacher candidates, I saw it as a means of engaging teacher candidates into the work of the college a little bit more. And actually my talk with them starts out with sharing a scenario where, as a professional, as a teacher, they will have received a friend request from Facebook from a student. And how do they respond to that? As potential teachers, student relationships are important to them, so their initial response might be to consider accepting the friend request. And then we talk about professional boundaries and the need for, as a professional, for transparency, for accountability, for responsibility, and how it's important to have, teaching is one of those professions that has a very public presence no matter where you go. And that's not necessarily the case with other professions like a X-ray lab technician or, an engineer, whereas teachers are sort of in that public realm all the time, and so their digital presence follows them as well and gets attached to part of who they are. And it seems that conversation, and then tweeting out photos of the visits and some of the conversation that's occurred has been initially effective. It's still early on. I just started this really in the fall, winter. It seems it's a positive way to engage the teacher candidates and approach them using a tool that they are familiar with and use themselves.
So I guess I'll jump in. I think, like everybody else, it becomes just a natural starting point, and we probably all started by lurking on one of the different tools. So I was no different. We had a Twitter account after a BIT conference, ECHO conference with Alacuros, and then I never used it till we had a conference. And for myself, I support 50 schools, and as a team, we support 250. So we were just trying to find a way to connect those people that are doing all that great work. And I think we started our hashtag Peel 21st And it probably was about 2 years of just 4 of us on there. And I think that's the things people don't tell you often is you go to these workshops and you see people talk about connections and an immediate response, and that's not always the case right away.
I'm doing this now.
But as time has gone on, I realized not only the power of connections when you have those questions or when you have something to share, but even just for inspiration. So I find a lot of times we talk about Twitter, but really for the folks out there, it's about starting where you're at. So I know for me, I've been exploring Instagram this past year, and it's become really, I always joke with people, if you want to know the real me, go on Instagram. Twitter's the filtered version. But it's amazing how much I've learned from just observing what other people do. And even Pinterest, looking at Pinterest as that curation tool. That digital persona doesn't need to be in a tool. It's starting with where you're at and finding ways to be inspired, to share, and to connect, I guess.
I'll just, I guess, add on to what Tina said too, and I agree completely. And one of the things that I find Twitter is great for is the connections for sure, and those critical friends that really push my thinking and ask questions. But it's that idea of sparking new ideas. When you have an idea and then somebody else has an idea and then you bring them together, it really does. That's where we start to get into those new innovations that really help us to push our thinking and go deeper with our learning and think more critically. So awesome.
Awesome, really good. Is there any tips or tricks that you could offer to the teacher candidates about how to manage digital identity or reputation? Some of the things that we as teachers tend to think of in terms of, in my case, I turn off all the notifications to social media. The only notification I get is a phone call or a text message, and I choose when to engage in social media as opposed to having it always filtering and coming at me. Are there things that you do as a teacher that would help new teachers help manage the reputations within the social media spaces?
Helen, I do much what you do, and it's been a bit of a struggle for me, in all honesty. I am a personality who gets very easily absorbed into research and into learning and seeking out endless opportunities for learning. And I think the biggest thing that I've had since having now Twitter for 2 years is having breaks. And Andy Hargraves is someone who actually was the one that turned me into a Twitter person on social media, who's a huge advocate for social media and the interactions amongst educators globally. But he himself said he takes Twittercations, as is now a terminology as we might know. And I think we have to remember that we cannot be attached to our devices. So as you build, if it's simply a requirement for you to just simply explore, has been heard, to lurk, to ask those who are comfortable asking that who might I want to seek out to see on social media and what they're doing, but to be cognizant of the fact that you have to balance your life, your work, and anything else, because I think that if we as educators devote our entire time to social media, we forget about the face-to-face time in the classroom with students. We forget about the valuable feedback that comes from whatever copy a student needs, be it technological, be it paper, and we can get lost in the technology itself. And that's a new learning curve. It's like you don't give a student a car and say go, unless you maybe live in the country and you drive a tractor. We have given students tools, and we almost in some ways are giving teachers tools to just run a myth with, without thinking of the digital citizenship and the leverage it has. And so that it's okay to be slow with it, and that it's okay to need breaks for your thumb's sake, for your brain's sake, for your family and friends' sake. And you have to find the best balance for yourself and not let someone else sway you to one way or the other.
I'm happy to jump in on that. I totally agree. I was speaking with Helen earlier, and we were talking about turning off and tuning out and doing something different. And I've set my work hours, and really do my best to only work within those hours. It's very easy to spend every waking moment working and getting caught up in that, because you will never be done. And that's something I learned early on in my career, that the work is never done, and you can always do more, and you can always do better. And I think what is most important is finding a balance that you're comfortable with. And for me, especially balancing work and a family, that means having set work hours and working within those hours, and then also making sure that I have time for my family and time for myself. It's very easy to burn out, and I can say that from experience, that it is really important to know your limits and work within those.
I'll jump in there as well then. Yeah, I think we're all here because we're really passionate people, and we're passionate about our jobs. But I teach my kids this year. I was very careful as to how to teach them what connections mean. And I said first at the beginning of the year, how to be connected with yourself, knowing yourself first. So I start the year with just simple projects based on connecting and knowing yourself, and then then being connected with your classmates and your family, the people around you, and then your community. So we did a lot of projects based on the connections that we have in our community, and then went more globally. So, and really, it is, if you're looking at a scaffolded approach, we should model that, you have to take care of yourself first, and then you need to care about the people around you. And for me as well, it's exercise in the environment and getting outside and making those things your priority. It's really important, and it's important also, I think, as teachers, that we talk about this and talk about the importance of balance with our students, and tell them about the struggles that we have as well, to be very balanced and be disciplined too. And so, sometimes when it comes to later in the evening, instead of watching TV, I might be on the computer. But just being cognizant of the important things in your life. And then I think it's a matter of picking one or two platforms, because I think we're all voracious learners as well. We're all here at 8 o'clock in the evening. So I refuse to go onto Facebook, not because I don't think it's good. I think it's probably because it's too good, and I can't go there. There's only so much time in a day. And then there's Voxer. There's a whole different platform, and I got onto a Voxer chat, and quite honestly, I'm having a hard time getting away from it. But I think I actually have to as well. So yeah, I think, and it's most important to talk to our students about that, and talk to them about the importance of balance.
So from somebody that's not a pitcher of balance, I think, and I don't know why I'm echoing, I'm sorry. One of the ideas that really stood out to me during my master's course was the concept that we can't really turn off. We live in an immersed society where stuff is on all the time, and we have to learn how to navigate our way through that. So for me, I think one piece is that your balance won't be someone else's balance. And like many have mentioned, knowing yourself and your needs as you move forward. And sometimes I think we look at social media as zapping time, but I can be, I think of the 100th Day Project on Instagram and how that may have been social media, but it was me stepping away from maybe more of that giving role on Twitter and taking a role of reflection and some time away just to create. So although social media was involved with that process, it was a completely different process than me being on Twitter doing a Twitter chat. So just recognizing that energy flow of when we're being fed and when we're feeling low. I guess it's that how full is your bucket piece for all ages.
I think it's really important. I mean, everyone's talking about balance, and it is tricky to do, and important to do at the same time. But I think for me, using social media, that's one of the nice things about it, is that I can take a Twittercation or whatever, step back from it if life gets busy. I can disappear from social media for a couple weeks, and then I can come back and it's still there. It's about finding those ideas, finding that inspiration when I'm ready for it. And if my life gets too busy and I'm not ready for it, it's okay. It's not going to disappear. It'll still be there in a couple days or a couple weeks when I refine my balance and come back to it. And for me, that's a really important piece as well. Just knowing that it's always there when I'm ready for it, when I'm able to spend half an hour or whatever taking a look at new ideas or searching out new connections.
Okay, I'm going to jump in with the next. The next prompt is around how did you decide where to participate, and how much time does it take? Peter, maybe about Voxer. How did you decide to participate with some of the spaces you're in?
You know what, I think it was Lee who mentioned sharing, actually, and I think that's, I guess before connecting my classroom, and this is what I'll say to all the associate teachers as well, or the up-and-coming teachers, the first 15 years of my career, for me, it was hard to get anybody to share their good resources. And I really often wished for the first 7 or 8 years that people would share more. Everybody had their units, and teachers are bad for hoarding good stuff. I'm not maybe saying us, but back then when I first started teaching, you had a good resource and you just you didn't want to give it away because you didn't want anybody else to be as, good as you or as well liked as you. And then I think I became one of those teachers as well for a few years and kind of hoarded. And then I decided that I got to a point in my career where I guess it was with the technology component and just had so many resources, and it became, they were digital resources and they were easy to share. So I created a website. That was my first kind of online presence. With the intention, it was called Sharesies, with the intention to share just my best resources. So just a little tip for the associate teachers out there is that people are willing to share and they want to share, and you just have to know how and where to find it. And yeah, Twitter can seem overwhelming at first, but we're not the digital natives. I mean, up until 10 years ago, I probably didn't even email. So pick a platform. I think I would recommend Twitter and become familiar with it, because know that it's great for professional development and learning. So yeah, I started with Twitter. Twitter's still my go-to. Voxer, yeah, that's a completely different entity that is great as well, because you're literally having an ongoing conversation with people. And I think I reached out also just because of the location I'm in. I'm in Thunder Bay. I have very little opportunity to go to any conferences outside of our city, which doesn't obviously happen very often. And when I went to conferences, I was so inspired by the people who were there and just the informal conversations that we had. So for me, it was Twitter and just a matter of connecting. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of other ones too.
I think for the choosing a platform is really dependent on your purpose. And as Peter was saying, he's entered different platforms for different reasons, and the Voxer chat being maybe to share something different. I know for me, when I wanted to share the work I was doing, I wanted to write about it. So Twitter wasn't a go-to place for me, because it was not a platform that supports storytelling to the extent that I needed to in order to share what I was doing. And that's been, I also, like Peter early on, I swore up and down that I would never use Twitter. Yet here I am, because I found a different purpose. And I know blogging for me, blogging makes my heart sing. That's my favorite thing to do, because I love to write, but I'm also now understanding that I have a much wider lens when I talk about blogging, and it's not just about writing. The blogging really includes any kind of sharing that you want to do in a variety of formats. It can be multimodal. There are a lot of opportunities there, and I've recently gravitated to Twitter because of that instant connection and ability to have a quick conversation with somebody or share something or a link to something. So I use different platforms for different purposes, but I'm also very aware of the spaces I belong to and only spend time in a few places because of the time that it takes. So blogging and Twitter are my two go-tos and spaces that I really enjoy.
I think something else to consider lies with what the employers are using. So different school boards are using different tools and might be more comfortable with a teacher using one tool than another. I know it's come up in discussions with teacher candidates about confirming or following sort of the protocol, the policies within the school board before embarking on a social media tool, and keeping in mind that not only is there a purpose, but what is that tool communicating about the class, about the individual as an educator? Because yes, teachers have personal lives, but off-duty conduct matters too. So there's the tools you're using in the classroom, and then which should be clearly tied to the classroom and the teacher. So there's that transparency. But then also with their own personal digital tools, that those two are still tied to who they are. So leaving the classroom doesn't mean that their identity necessarily changes. So another consideration.
Hey guys, I just want to build on what Angela said and also what Lee said about one of the ways when I talk to students about that idea is I show them the Creating Pathways to Success, that document from the ministry. There's a graphic in there that for K-6 that it's like a Venn diagram. And one of the questions at the top is, who am I? And I try to get that is one of the ways that I help to frame how they present themselves to the world, is using a question like that and getting them to reflect on whether what they're about to share reflects who they are. And the other thing I wanted to say too about when Lee was talking is that idea of, I think blogging is fantastic, and I really love the richness of Twitter and how you can, although it is limited to that 140 characters, you really can develop the richness of it by posting pictures, or the other day we were posting wordless stories by creating GIFs and doing things like that. And my advice, I think, about blogging would be to teachers, if they want to share in that way, is definitely to, nothing's ever perfect, so just begin and just go for it, because I know that when I first started, I tried to make all of my posts absolutely perfect before I posted them, and I would take hours and hours and hours, and that probably wasn't the best use of my time when we talk about how much time it takes when you're participating. So my advice for you is just to share and go for it and take that risk, because it is your learning journey, and we all know that everyone moves forward. So awesome.
I just want to, just a little piggyback. The fact that I live in a community, and I'm sure this is common to many of you, I'm surrounded by my students where I live physically, and at the beginning of the year, as some of the new, I work in a 6 to 7, 8 school, and as the grade 6s, for some reason, didn't connect me as a teacher at the time when they were in grade 5 in this community, all of a sudden they enter my school and they're like, I know you, I see you walking your dog, and for 3 weeks, I would have students say to me, I saw you walking your dog, I saw you walking your dog. And in many ways, that was a reflective piece that we have when we talked about digital citizenship in our school, is that the perception that students have of you, the perception that adults have of you, and much like what Angela has mentioned, is incredibly important because of the role that we play in modeling. And if we are educators that are simply stating on the regular that be the change you want to see in the world, the Free the Children, We Day messages that stem across every single province and city, it seems like now, that we do have to hold ourselves to a certain standard without losing the integrity of who we are. And the interactions that I have face-to-face with my students is sort of the gauge that I use on Twitter, on Voxer, and how the messages that I always want to make clear that I will have fun with it within certain confinements of my own that I feel comfortable with. And as I start to grow the Twitter usage in my school or whatever it may be of comfort for the fellow teachers, is that we consistently have to go back to the idea of what we're comfortable with, how we wish to be left behind. It's not a digital footprint. We are false to think that. It's a digital tattoo. And Derek Rodenizer of the same area that I'm in will speak to that more evidently online. It's not erasable. And that is the scary piece of all of this, is that things can be found. And so the meaningfulness that we need to think about before entering any social media world is how we can use that social media effectively, and how that child who might say, hey, I saw you walking your dog face to face, well, what will they see of you online, let alone an employer? Or the times that you miss that opportunity to close down your social media in class and someone else gets a hold of it. There's a lot of negatives that we can think about, but there's so many more positives that we have to be so mindful of what we do with our social media. And I think this stems from numerous issues that have happened in my school over the past couple of weeks that have involved the police on student accounts, and it's made me much more in tune with the requirements of social media and how we use it meaningfully, like we keep on repeating. And I think that's the main message, is meaningfulness of it.
I think, though, somehow we have to get back to the idea that social media is really just an extension of ourselves. Too many times we use the examples of April Raymer's, the tweets April Raymer got from when the Leafs were doing terribly bad, or those situations that really are awry. I think sometimes we see that digital persona as not being who we are in person, and I think to me that really helped me get out of the panic, I guess, of always wondering of, is this what I should post today? Because really what I want my social media accounts to be is an extension of who I am as a person, keeping in mind the standards of practice, of course, and the ethical standards, which should guide us whether we're in the grocery store or whether we're on Twitter. So I don't, to me that really, that quick glance when I'm looking at Twitter, or a quick glance before I post a blog post, that I'm not struggling as much with whether I'm vulnerable or not, or whether that's the exact wording, but I'm trying to make sure that it portrays who I am as an educator and as a person. I think one thing that I was thinking of as we were chatting was we've all come to a tool that's worked for us. So Twitter, definitely for education, Twitter is kind of the platform with our hashtags and the handles. But really, I know that Twitter may not be the tool. We often talk about digital natives, but it may not be the tool you reside in. And instead of always going and finding a tool that's going to create that community for you, you may find that that community is already in the tool you're already using. Even if it's something like WhatsApp, and you have a group of friends where you're sharing questions that you need to tackle. That's just as valuable.
Can I just add something to that, Zita? And I think this is for anybody who's new to it. It is an extension of who we are, but I think all of us who are here right now, we have experience behind us. We know who we are as educators. It is not to say that any of you new people to the education system don't know who you are, but there is a slight difference of understanding who you are in a digital atmosphere, from going from elementary to high school to college, university to professional. And I think that's part of this learning curve, that by no means can we not share our personality online. I'll be the first to say I share my dog online quite a bit because I find him entertaining. But I think that that's part of this growing pains of social media and the community building that we have as educators with the various means of platforms. And Helen, I'm really sorry to say that still some of my best PD comes from my students in the face-to-face interactions, and so we can't forget about that either.
I think it's worth mentioning too that, I mean, with all of this, I find a lot of my colleagues are afraid to get into social media and to check it out, and even though they'll say to me, well, where'd you get this idea? Where'd you find out? Oh, I got it on Twitter, I got it on G+ communities. But there is a fear of getting started, and well, which one do I pick? Do I go on Twitter? Do I go on G+? Do I find groups on Facebook? Don't be afraid to just go in and lurk, right? Make an account, check out some of the groups or some of the hashtags, see what other teachers are posting, see the tone or the flavor of the various social media sites or the various groups. I think a lot of people assume that when they join a social media outlet or a platform, they have to start contributing right away. And that's not the case. You can go in and you can just lurk, you can just look around, maybe ask a question here or there. And then over time, as you feel more comfortable or find the social media platform that suits you and your work or your personality the best, then you can run with that. But it's definitely worth looking into. You don't just want to sit on the sidelines and oh, I can't decide, so I'm just not going to jump in. Get your toes wet a little bit, I guess, and try things out and see what other teachers are doing with it.
Okay, I think what I'll do is just ask one more prompt or one more focus question, being very aware of the time that you're contributing to the learning of my students tonight. How do you explain your digital presence, your images, actions, events to colleagues or family who don't know what you do in social media spaces? How do you talk about Twittering to people who may not understand what it's all about?
I'll jump in. I think, yeah, I don't really have to explain it to my family or to my friends because I think I communicate with my family and friends face to face. Really, it's only Twitter that I use more for, I'll say Twitter, but then, you know, blogs and I'm also on Google Plus as well. But I would say primarily I reside around Twitter. But so I think it's more with the families that I have these conversations with, because I think our job or our responsibility as teachers now is to really have these conversations about social media and the very, very powerful tools that our kids have at their fingertips. And so I just had a telephone conversation with a parent today, and she asked me, after they're actually reading my blog. The parents are now, I've really reached out and kind of now we're going along the looking at the audience and involving the parents in that classroom to home connection. So my students and I are sharing our learning journeys on our blog, I'll call it, and they actually help me write every blog, and they decide what we're going to post. They edit for me. A lot of them will actually even write it, and we share our math thinking and our science investigations, and we're working on a Make a Difference project as well that the parents are involved in. And so they see it, and actually they're reading it. 100% of my students read the blog this weekend. So anyway, I was actually just making contact with a parent and looking for her feedback, and she asked, do I think that her daughter should be starting a Facebook account? And me personally, I said no. In fact, I tell my students that there's an age restriction, or you have to be a certain age to start up a Facebook account and a Twitter account. And it's not that I don't think, well, yeah, I think they're not ready. Me personally, I don't think that they should be starting an account. I'll say 18, but we know it's probably going to be pushed to 14 or 12 or whatever. But we're saying that, you know, in my case, I'm trying to model every tweet that we tweet out, the kids read, and we're tweeting it as a class, but we're making those decisions, and I'm making it as an adult, and even when we're blogging as well. Kind of making the decisions together, but you know, we'll look at the analytics as well of some of the tweets, and you know, when they've made 25, 30,000 impressions, I can also say, now look guys, like imagine if you made a mistake and you tweeted it out there, you know it's not coming back, you can't get it back. And I like the digital tattoo that Alison talked about. I'll actually be sharing that with my students. But it's really important that we model and teach our students how to use these very, very powerful tools. And I actually believe that maybe their generation will, or this generation coming up, will really make a positive difference in the world by using social media for good. If you don't have anything good to say or tweet, don't tweet it or say it at all. And I think it's up to us to model that.
I couldn't agree more. Well said. Well said. I think I saw a tweet in the feed here about be nice. Just be nice. I guess, yeah, I don't often have conversations about my digital presence, so it's kind of an interesting question to think about. It's almost, I think, in some circles an expectation, and in others, you know, it is based on personal choice, and you connect with the people in those spaces, and so the conversations about why you're here don't often come up. I think it's yeah, it's an interesting question. So one of the just thinking about what Peter was saying about, you know, kids getting connected on Facebook. I often spend time discussing with parents, and I think that's where I'm going to go with this. How and why children should be connected, and at what age they should start using various platforms. And in my board, the blogging work that's happening board wide starts in kindergarten. So kids who are in JK have a blog created, and they start learning about purpose and about audience, and learning how to share and getting excited about sharing. And I think initially the audience that flocks to those blogs are the parents, right? When we give kids a public platform to share their learning, we've all of a sudden opened up this magic window into the classroom, and families and anyone else, you know, looking in can see what's now happening in our spaces. And the work that I've seen being shared by teachers has really opened my eyes to what an outstanding profession we work in. And what was previously happening in spaces behind closed doors is now being made public. And when we make our learning public, we create opportunities for collaboration, we inspire others, and we also then invite others into our space to learn along with us. And when we ask our students to do the same, we provide them with the same opportunities. And we're also immersing them in environments that support the learning of new literacy skills and experience with technology. And that whole digital citizenship piece, those conversations should be happening as young as age 4, in my opinion, that once we present kids with an opportunity to use technology, those conversations go hand in hand.
I think too that you mentioned, Lee, that teaching, you know, it speaks to how exciting of a profession it is to be able to use those tools. I think it also speaks to the creative component that it brings to the teaching profession. And I mean, really, a lot of the social media tools were not created with education in mind. So it's about capitalizing on the potential of those tools, and then because of they weren't created for education necessarily, that there's risks involved. But by considering digital citizenship, you're maintaining those risks and you're being preventative. So I think that part is also really essential.
So I guess I don't have a problem with getting my family on board. Even my dad and my mom are in the social media platforms, which is awesome to be to connect with my parents in PEI. So I don't have that issue. I think what I'm trying to share with educators, coming back to that original story of how'd you get other folks on board, I think it's really that show and tell kind of experience. It's really hard for someone to understand without having the experience or without seeing it physically. So we do a little recap in Peel 21st each week, and often that's what we use as a starting point when we want to get other people on board, to just get that glimpse. It's hard to get Ashton Kutcher and Kim Kardashian out of your mind with Twitter until you see some of those tweets that folks are tweeting out. So using a hashtag or using one of those recaps as a way to kind of show and just give folks a little bit of a glimpse. And then with parents, sometimes it's backwards planning because kids are already on social media. And then just reminding them of some of those terms of agreement and some of the settings that are available, just kind of working backwards with wherever they stand at that point.
I agree with what Tina said. Just to add to that, we often see, like, our students. Oh, cute dog, Alison.
Sorry.
Sorry, that was a very squirrel moment there. I think that, like, our students, they're born into the digital world, right? And but that doesn't mean that they know how to use it for learning, or how to. They do need us to teach them and model for them. And I really do think we have a responsibility to do that with our students, because they're doing it. And if somebody said to me not too long ago about how the only place where students actually follow the rules that are set up by all these companies for, like, being 13 or being whatever the age restrictions are and all those things, it actually is in school. So I think that we really do need to, and I know that we need to keep them safe and we need to be doing all those things, but I think we do need to talk about it, and we do need to address it in schools and take advantage of those teachable moments that come up, and talk to our students about how they can stay safe and use it to enhance learning.
That's my experience in this with all of you. I have parents who join Twitter just to follow my account and follow our class account. Is it sounding really weird? Hello? I don't know if anyone can hear me anymore because the internet sort of just kind of went weird.
I can still hear you. Hello? Hello?
There, I think I'm back. I'll just really quickly. We have the best platform to model, to create the digital persona that children and students need to be aware of, that adults need to be aware of. And if anything, having conversations with parents, if my students can tell me one thing about social media, no matter what the platform, it validates who they are in the sense that they have a place in the world that extends beyond the learning community of a four-walled classroom at times. And when you have the Prime Minister sending a shout out to your class about a question you've posed to him, there is nothing more outstanding than seeing the smile on a child's face, knowing that perhaps their career path has been changed, or an educator's path has been changed, because someone has acknowledged an important question near and dear to their heart. So social media, to explain it to parents and to family members if they don't understand it, we find examples that showcase how that power can be created in a positive way amongst people who are like-minded and are challenging the status quo. And when that is our tool and our tipping point, who knows the opportunities that can stem from it.
I couldn't agree more, Alison, and I just wanted to add that really echoes the message in George Couros' book, Innovator's Mindset, where he talks about moving beyond engagement to empowering learners. And when we can empower them, the gains that they make academically, socially, and as individuals in their own growth and development is really inspiring.
I agree. If I can just throw in one last thing, 2 seconds worth. Absolutely. A lot of I don't know if I misread the question, but I always thought my family. What does my family think about my involvement, and my colleagues and friends? I've had a hard time convincing a lot of them that being on social media as a teacher is worthwhile. But what Tina was saying and what Alison was saying is that absolutely sometimes you just have to give them examples and show them what is possible. I can connect my class with another class somewhere around the world, or I can have my students' questions answered by an astronaut, or anything like that, because that's what social media makes possible. And hearing things like that, that's a game changer. And I think anyone, whether they are fully immersed in social media or whether they are Luddites, so to speak, can appreciate that's a huge way to impact your class, and it's very worthwhile.
And I would like to just say thank you to each of you for your thoughts. You've made a big difference, I know, to the students, the teacher candidates, and to those who will hear the messages, the voice that you've shared tonight. To some who have never considered social media, maybe they'll watch and they'll be able to think critically about where they want to start and how they want to start. So I really appreciate your experience, your expertise, your insight, and your opportunity to share. Thank you very much for being here tonight.